All right, folks, I want you to brace yourselves for a bombshell news story of staggering corruption and hypocrisy courtesy of Donald Trump. Even as Trump insists that working class Americans need to assume financial hardship to accommodate his ridiculous global trade war, even as Trump's press secretary insists it's absurd to assume that Trump is trying to use the presidency to personally enrich himself, despite the evidence to support that, we now have this. Donald Trump is reportedly about to take possession of a $400 million luxury jet gifted to him by a foreign government with whom he has financial dealings and business relationships. And reportedly, not only will he use it as the new Air Force One, but once he leaves office, he will take that jet with him. This is a staggering violation of the constitutional emoluments clause and the biggest corrupt gift a president has ever received from any foreign actor ever. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, for context, I want you to hear the outrage, the performative outrage of Caroline Leavitt, Donald Trump's press secretary, just 2 days ago at the notion that people would assume Trump is corrupt.
And let me just get to the premise of your question that both of you have raised. I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public reelected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interests of our country and putting the American public first. This is a president who has actually lost money for being president of the United States. I don't remember these same type of questions being asked of my predecessor about a career politician who was clearly profiting off of this office. That is not what President Trump does, and this White House holds ourselves to the highest of ethical standards.
The brazen performative outrage and brazen dishonesty, we've just never seen anything like it. She's full of shit. Reports are that Donald Trump has made millions, billions of dollars potentially off the presidency by way of leveraging that influence. This notion, oh, he left a life of privilege to become the most powerful man on earth. Yeah, some people would make that trade, especially when you can use your temporary public appointed power to acquire even more luxury. So I don't know if Caroline Leavitt's just really dumb or she's hoping you're dumb. Like, oh my God, who would become like a real estate billionaire and like give it all up just to become the most powerful man on earth? Like, who would do that? A lot of people would, dumbass, especially when they could use that power to become even richer after they leave office. So again, all of the evidence to the contrary is just staggering. And then we have this, as the Democrats point out on their official Twitter page, responding to Caroline Leavitt. Trump administration poised to accept palace in the sky as a gift for Trump from Qatar. A luxury jumbo jet is set to be used as Air Force One, sources told ABC News. And we'll get to this in just a second because Trump is reportedly going to take that jet with him once he leaves office, if he leaves office. As Mac McDermott notes, last week, the Trump Organization announces a new $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar. Now this week, Trump is about to get a luxury jumbo jet, a palace in the sky. So let's take a look at the reporting and then we'll get to the reaction. Trump is to accept a luxury 747 from Qatar for use as Air Force One. The plan raises substantial ethical issues given the immense value of the lavishly appointed plane and the fact that Trump plans to use it after he leaves office. The Trump administration plans to accept a luxury Boeing 747-8 plane as a donation from the Qatari royal family that will be upgraded to serve as Air Force One in possibly the biggest foreign gift ever received by the U.S. government, a senior official with direct knowledge of the matter said. The plane will then be donated to Donald Trump's presidential library when he leaves office, the official said, allowing him to continue using it as a private citizen. The plan raises substantial ethical issues given the immense value of the lavishly appointed plane and the fact that Trump plans to use it after he leaves office. Sold new, a commercial Boeing 747-8 costs in the range of $400 million. Trump's own private plane, known as Trump Force One, is an older 757 jet that first flew in the early 1990s and was then used by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. Trump bought it in 2011. The Qatari jet, if Trump continued flying it after leaving office, would give him a substantially newer plane for his own use. The plan, reported earlier by ABC News, is expected to be announced in the coming days as Trump makes the first extended foreign trip of his presidency to 3 nations in the Middle East, including Qatar. It will fulfill Trump's desire for a new Air Force One after repeated delays involving a government contract to Boeing for 2 new jets to serve that purpose. Trump toured the Qatari 747, which is just over a decade old, while it was parked at the Palm Beach International Airport in February. The New York Times reported then that the jet was being considered as a possible new Air Force One. The plane being donated by Qatar is expected to be retrofitted by a military contractor called L3 Harris in Texas, and that work can begin once the government approves how the plane is being acquired, the official said. It is expected to be finished being equipped with military capabilities by the end of the year, the official said, allowing Trump to use it while in office. A White House spokesperson did not respond to requests for comment. A Defense Department official said Sunday that the Air Force has not reached any agreement on a contract to refurbish the Qatari 747 to make the security upgrades and modifications necessary for an Air Force One, and the Air Force could not legally do so until it took ownership of the plane. Assuming that were to happen, the official said, it would still take an extended period of time to complete the contract, and more important, to do the actual upgrades and modifications. We're talking years, not months, the Defense Department official said, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive details about the future Air Force One. The model that the government is using for addressing the ethical issues raised by the donation, the official said, is the one followed by President Ronald Reagan's presidential library when it received the Air Force One he had flown after it was retired from use. Big freaking detail right there. But at the time, Reagan did not use the plane to fly around himself. It was set up in the museum portion of his library, a second substantive detail. The plane was being retired, so there was no other functional use for it, and Reagan didn't use it to fly around. It was part of a library, a public museum. 2 big damn differences. Another person with knowledge of the effort to acquire the plane said that Qataris had initially offered to donate it immediately to the Trump library and then have Trump use it while in office. But government lawyers said that would have been a violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, the person said. The current plan has been signed off on by government lawyers who concluded it does not violate the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution and that the Defense Department can accept the gift, the official said. In other words, Pam Bondi, the Justice Department, right, Trump's own people, this is no big deal. Sure, it's going to be used by Trump, and then Trump is going to take it once he leaves office, but it's not really like a gift, right? And that doesn't really violate the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, right? We'll get to that in just a second. Again, just for reference, as Newsweek reported from that screenshot earlier, that Trump is building a $5.5 billion project for Qatar. So Qatar and Donald Trump have a business relationship, a private business relationship. And they're gifting him a $400 million plane that's a hell of a lot newer and more lavish than the one he uses as a private citizen, Trump Force One. As Democratic Congressman and constitutional scholar Jamie Raskin notes, Trump must seek Congress's consent to take this $300 million gift from Qatar. The Constitution is perfectly clear. No present, quote, of any kind whatsoever from a foreign state without congressional permission. A gift you can use for 4 years and then deposit in your library is still a gift and a grift. And again, this is where I just want to look into some of the reaction to this. Just a person on Twitter. People pretend to be concerned about foreign influence, but are silent about the one country that's been openly spending billions to purchase U.S. politicians, control U.S. schools, and influence U.S. policy, and with deep connection to anti-American terrorism, a country that's essentially a slave state, by the way. Just imagine the national security issues with having a president fly in a plane built by Qatar. That's one perspective. Another perspective is this. Imagine if this headline read, President Obama is poised to accept a luxury jet as a gift from Qatar. President Biden is poised to accept a luxury jet as a gift from Qatar. President Harris is poised to accept a luxury jet as a gift from Qatar. Just curious what the reaction would be. We're going to, again, look into the reaction here because this is just stunning. If Air Force One's reportedly set for a luxurious upgrade, as AB News reports, that the Qatari government is gifting Trump a Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet, a move drawing scrutiny and legality concerns over possible corruption and foreign influence. Critics warned that the high-end gift could set a troubling precedent, encouraging other foreign actors to offer luxury goods in pursuit of favorable treatment or possible business dealings. Others are concerned with the legality of the move and if it violates the Constitution's Foreign Emoluments Clause. Concerns over the blurred lines between politics and personal business have repeatedly surfaced during both Trump administrations. The Trump Organization, now run by Trump's sons Eric and Don Jr., continues pursuing real estate ventures in the Middle East. At the end of April, the organization announced a new $5.5 billion development of a luxury golf resort north of Doha. Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and former senior advisor, drew scrutiny after securing a $2 billion investment from a Saudi fund led by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman just 6 months after leaving the White House. And again, I just want to comment on that. Remember, Jared Kushner was basically the shadow Secretary of State in Trump's first term. So let's think about this. Trump was president, Biden was president. Jared Kushner is Trump's son-in-law, Hunter Biden is Donald Trump's son. Everybody knows Hunter Biden because the right led a wildly successful demagogue and anti-Biden campaign on this. House Republicans tried to impeach President Biden for 2 years and failed, even though they had the majority. They were in the majority. They, on paper, had the votes to impeach, but they could never find the courage to do it because they knew the case was so weak that even these MAGA Republicans dared not bring it up to a vote, even though the numbers were on their side. Total witch hunt in every possible way. Hunter Biden has been investigated by Obama's DOJ, Biden's DOJ, Trump's DOJ, Senate Republicans, House Republicans. Hunter Biden is perhaps the most congressionally investigated, federally investigated private citizen at that level that we've ever seen. He was never in government. He never worked for President Biden. He was not a senior advisor to his father. Jared Kushner was in government, wielded enormous power as his father-in-law's shadow Secretary of State and Middle East envoy. And 6 months after leaving Trump's White House, he gets a $2 billion investment from the Saudi crown prince, who, by the way, had to overrule the managers, his financial advisors, the managers of his wealth fund, because they were like, do not make this investment. Jared Kushner has no relevant experience, no relevant expertise. This is a gamble of the highest order. Corruption. Objectively, far more obscene and corrupt than anything ever associated with Hunter Biden. And House Democrats investigated Kushner quietly, methodically, behind the scenes, and then Republicans eventually won the majority and killed the investigation, refused to go further, even though Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, admitted, yeah, what Jared Kushner did, probably violated the law. Because it's not about principles, it's about team sport. Democrats fucked up spectacularly by not making it public. And if I love Jamie Raskin, I think he's amazing, but House Democrats should have been publicly, ruthlessly investigating Kushner from the very beginning, the way that Democrats, or rather Republicans, would have had the shoe been on the other foot, and did once the shoe was on the other foot. So Democrats, if you're watching, if by some miracle you reclaim the House in 2026, you must ruthlessly and publicly every goddamn day investigate Donald Trump and his family every day, not quietly behind the scenes, publicly, hearing. If you don't do that, you have failed politically. You tried the quiet, methodical, adult way behind the scenes. It got you nowhere. So do it publicly. Do what Republicans would do, especially when the predicate is more robust. Sorry for taking so much time on that, but it's worth noting. So how has the reaction been? Well, let's take a look. Senator Adam Schiff, a California Democrat and vocal Trump critic, echoed similar sentiments, writing on X that given the clause, quote, it seems pretty clear that a $400 million air palace from a foreign emir qualifies. The corruption is brazen. Let's see, who else? Jamie Raskin responded to what he had to say. We read what Jamie Raskin had to say. Let's see, Mac McDermott again, a foreign regime gifting a jet to a former president. It's bribery in broad daylight. Travis Ackers, retired U.S. Navy intelligence officer, said this is corruption in its rawest form. I mean, it's staggering. So let's go to social media where this is trending on Twitter. Trump to accept luxury jet from Qatar. It's just stunning. Last week, Trump announced a $5.5 billion golf course in Trump Resort would be built in Qatar. This week, Qatar gifts the president a luxury jet that he can keep when he leaves office. Corruption in its rawest form. Mac McDermott, read what he had to say. Ann Applebaum, who is an authoritarian expert, she quotes the emoluments clause of the Constitution. She clearly opposes this. David Axelrod, Democratic strategist, he's quoting the emoluments clause as well. Sam Stein of the Bulwark, at no point in this article is it written the administration officials weighed whether it was wise to just not accept the gift, even if they could do so legally. David Frum, a longtime conservative but anti-Trumper, says Trump is about to accept a gift of a jet from Qatar. This is a gift to him personally. He wants to transfer the jet to his presidential library, meaning his personal use and that of his heirs. One more reason, Ann Applebaum and I call it the most corrupt presidency ever. And indeed it is. Jason Crow, veteran Democratic congressman, says accepting a $400 million palace in the sky plane from a foreign nation clearly violates the Constitution. Government officials cannot accept gifts, quote, from any king, prince, or foreign state. This is the most corrupt president in history, and indeed it is. We can keep, the thing is that I was looking for here, actually, and Adam Kinzinger just brings it up. is the Hunter Biden comparison, just to go full circle. Adam Kinzinger, former Republican congressman, says, didn't Hunter Biden once sell a painting and get investigated for 4 years? This is sick. And despite saying it will be donated to his library, of course he will use it, so it's donated to him. The evil, sick, corrupt, fat, smelly grift is out of control. He also notes incredibly illegal. It's insane. It really is insane that this former Republican congressman, Joe Walsh, this is corruption, plain and simple. Even Stephen Miller, a right-wing pro-Trump commentator, says that sounds like a very bad idea. And so on and so forth. I mean, how could this possibly be legal, even if on a technicality, it being given specifically for the president's use and benefit? Friend of the show, Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, says this is the most corrupt president in American history, and it's not particularly close. And again, if you just keep scrolling, you'll find people making the point that imagine if this were Joe Biden, imagine if this were Kamala Harris, imagine if this were Hunter Biden. But this is not about principles, folks. This is why it's so important, why I keep trying to drive this home. And I'll conclude with this. It is objectively the case that Trump supporters, in their most cultish form, don't give a damn about corruption. If you give a damn about corruption, then you should give a damn about corruption, be it Biden, Trump, Hunter Biden, Jared Kushner, Republican, Democrat. You should have one standard and hold everybody to it. They don't. Certainly elected Republicans don't. They don't care. They hold Hunter Biden, civilian son of a former president, to a higher ethical standard than the sitting president of the United States, because that president is of their party, so he has to be graded on a curve. It is a failure of everybody, of Democrats, of Republicans, of the media, and yes, of the public, yes, of you and me. It's a failure on all of our parts collectively because we grade Trump on a curve and we expect more of Democrats and Republicans. I'm not saying expect less from Democrats. I'm saying if you expect high ethical performance from Democrats, fair enough. That means you're morally obligated to do the same with Republicans. Otherwise, you're an unprincipled, hypocritical loser who should be made fun of because it's not about principle to you. It's about outcome. That's where we are. More confirmation of this. And quite frankly, it's not even just the plane. The meme coin, all the financial corruption of the Trump administration, even in his first term, 3,700 conflicts of interest documented by Citizens for Responsibilities and Ethics in Washington, CREW, the ethical watchdog. This is stunning. But here's the point. Somebody noted this. They were like, I don't know why Trump is doing this when he could have just not accepted the gift. Well, why not? Why not? Trump has no reason to believe that he will ever be held accountable for this. None. Elected Republicans don't do it. They love to own the libs so much they're going to cheer this on. The courts are feckless and feckless, and Democrats, when they have power, most of the time they're feckless too. They take forever to go after Trump. When they investigate Trump, they do it behind the scenes, again as House Democrats did. Why shouldn't Trump, in his spite and his smugness, try to push the envelope? Why shouldn't he? Who's going to stop him? Why not test and see how far it goes? Why not test your limits? That's his mindset, and we've helped create it. There should be one standard for politicians, and the fact that one party and one person violate those standards more than the other party and the other candidate, the fact that elected Republicans are morally inferior and ethically inferior to elected Democrats, if that makes you uncomfortable because you like to believe, well, both sides bad, I'm sorry. You shouldn't grade people on a curve. That's political and ethical affirmative action. Donald Trump is the most objectively corrupt president in the history of the United States by far. And the people who will either ignore this or celebrate it would have a very different reaction if it were a Democrat. And that means you should give them nothing but contempt because it's not about principle. It's not about opposing corruption. It's about owning the libs. That's all they care about. So I don't know what's going to happen of this, but it sure seems like he's going to accept the gift and then he's going to personally use it for his own benefit in and out of office. And there's no reason to believe otherwise. That's where we are. A constitutional and ethical violation of the highest order, once again confirming Trump is the most corrupt president ever. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.